So I am recording. I'm going to show my screen right now, and that way I will post this on my website. If you want to watch this afterwards, you're more than welcome to do that. So we want to thank you again. Feel free to ask questions. I probably won't. Um, I'll try to stop at a few times, and if Valerie or Joe, if you guys have some questions, specific questions that you want to ask me, that would be great. And so feel free and do that. But we'll get started. By the way, this is technology. Yes, I'm in France. I've done several RPR webinars and many webcasts from Nice, France, and have not had any issues. But if for some reason the internet was to go down or something happens, I will log right back in. We do have a couple of backup support staff that can pick up as well. But thanks for joining me for this RPR webcast, getting started with RPR. And again, my name's John Mayfield. I am a real estate broker from Missouri, about 60 miles south of St. Louis. I received my real estate license at the age of 18 in 1978. So you can quickly calculate and do the math. But real estate's all I've ever done. I love real estate. I've written a couple of real estate books, and hopefully maybe somebody on the call has purchased one of those. And I also do a lot of training and speaking. I'll be speaking in Belgium next week, and came over to help my friend in his real estate office here on the French Riviera. And so I travel all over the world. I get to use a lot of various technology tools. And I don't tell you that to brag, but just to tell you that I really get to see what's new and fresh and innovative that's going on around the world with technology. And that's why I love RPR so much, because this is a cutting edge tool that does some amazing things. And yes, I use it in my real estate business. I am still in the trenches. I'm still working with buyers and sellers. And I got to tell you, I love RPR. So if you're new to RPR, you're going to love this program. If you've been using RPR for a while and you just kind of want to figure out some new ways that you can apply this and use it in your business, well, you've come to the right session. So we're going to have a good time. I'm going to show you some really cool things. It is a getting started with RPR, but I like to show some advanced cool things that I'm doing, and I could show you so many more things that I'm doing with RPR. But for right now, we'll get started. And I just have a few PowerPoint slides to cover with you, and then we're going to get right in, and I'm going to show you some specific slides with RPR and how I'm using it. So what does the RPR Basics class or Getting Started class cover? I'm going to really kind of just show you what is RPR and how to use it with buyers and sellers. We'll create some reports, and I'll show you how to navigate around the screen and kind of set up your account. But let's just kind of start with, what is RPR? Well, RPR is a wholly owned subsidiary corporation. It's owned by the National Association of Realtors, and it's a database. We call it this parcel-centric property information of over 166 million U.S. parcels or properties. And really what I like to kind of tell people regarding that bullet point there is this. It's kind of like having all of the properties that are parceled out in your county courthouse plugged into RPR, or where you have access to the properties with RPR. Let me tell you a quick little story, and I think this will kind of sum up that bullet point for you when we say, when we tell you there's over 166 million parcels of property in the RPR database. This past year in 2015, I had some friends that called me who wanted to list their mother and father's property in my hometown. Now, I grew up down the street from these folks, had known them ever since I was a little boy. And again, I told you I was born in 1960. Well, these folks, Mr. and Mrs. Harder, they owned this property since 1954. Now, I was born in 1960. They purchased this property in 1954, and I grew up as a young child down the street for them. I knew Mr. and Mrs. Harder, went to church with them my entire life, knew their children. The Harders never, ever put their property for sale in the multiple listing book, or service, we should say. I'm dating my age when I talk about the MLS book. Believe it or not, when we went from the MLS book to the computer, that was a whole story in itself. But we had agents that didn't want to get away from the book. But the Harders had never listed their property in the for sale with a real estate company. It had never been for sale, never been in the MLS. Unfortunately, Mr. Harder passed away. Mrs. Harder moved into a nursing home. The children were going to sell the property. They wanted me to list the property for them. Well, I was able to go into RPR, put their property address in, and pull up all of the information I needed for that listing appointment. And RPR even gave me a suggested list price. Now, that's what we mean by this parcel-centric property database. There literally are properties that you can access in RPR that you could never go and find in your multiple listing service. And the really interesting thing, and what I like about RPR, is that it's only for you and I as realtors. It's exclusively for us, and it's delivered through this cutting edge application. Now, what we mean by a cutting edge application is that there are literally over 300 different pieces of property or 300 different pieces of information that are put into RPR. For example, if you want to know how many average days of sunshine you have in your community or zip code, that's an RPR. You want to know how many people vote Republican or how many people vote Democrat? It's in RPR. Believe it or not, today, somewhere in the United States, there will be an attorney who will go to the local courthouse and begin foreclosure proceedings on a property. We hate the thought of that because we are a proud, uh, sponsors and providers of the American dream, and we hate to see anybody go through that kind of situation and lose a piece of real estate. But unfortunately, those things happen, and an attorney may file that paperwork today in a local county courthouse somewhere to begin the foreclosure proceedings. That information will more than likely be available tomorrow in RPR. So that's what we mean by this really cool, cutting edge application. There is lots of information that I will show you that's in RPR. And best of all, there's no charge for you to use RPR. Now, let me give a little disclaimer there. It is included with your dues dollars, but there's no additional charge for you to use RPR. So the consumer has no public access to it. It is a very interesting cutting edge application, and you can do some amazing things with RPR. Now, RPR is not an MLS. Sometimes people want to say, well, isn't RPR, are they trying to create this national MLS? No, RPR gets its data from your MLS. So wipe that off the board. It's not an MLS. It is a consumer facing business model, as you can see here. It's a listing syndicator. I mean, it's not any of those items there. It's not a consumer facing business model. It's not a listing syndicator, redistributor. It's not available to anyone other than realtor members of the National Association of Realtors. So keep that in mind. We're not out trying to create some kind of public facing business model for the consumer. So how can you use RPR? Well, it's a research tool, as you will find out. It will help you price properties. It's a farming and a prospecting tool, and it's really a way to impress buyers and sellers with some very amazing and very cool looking reports. And it will allow you to stand out during your listing presentation. It's great for open houses and really a whole lot more. I love to really say that when I talk about, well, how can you use RPR or how's it going to make you different? I was listening to an MP3 uh, several months ago. I was driving to do an RPR presentation in Columbia, Missouri. And I was listening to an MP3. A gentleman was on there who's an online marketer and he's very successful. And he made this statement that I thought was very interesting. He said, there's really only one difference between a dollar bill and $100 bill. And I thought about that for a moment and I thought, that's interesting. And here's what he said. He said, it's the message. Now think about that for a moment. If you get nothing else out of this webinar, I want you to remember that statement because that is why RPR is working for me. It is a $100 bill message. Folks, I want you to know I use a lot of technology tools and there's some awesome products that are out there. And if there's a CMA tool or product, I've tried it. I mean, I'm a tech guy. And I want you to know this CMA report rocks. It is an awesome report, and it has helped me win more business over my competition because it gives a different message than my MLS CMA can provide. So I'm going to show you some of that, but it's all of those things in one little package that you get to use at no additional cost. Now, here's the last PowerPoint I want to show you, and it talks about a couple of things called AVMs and RVMs, and you're already familiar with an AVM. It's an automated valuation model. I'm going to show a house. Oh, it's been several months ago, and the folks had called me. They wanted to look at one of my listings, and I set the appointment up, and I met them on the allotted time that we had and day to show them the property. I'd never met them in my life, and so I'm at my listing and get out of the car. They pull up, and they both get out of the car, and he puts his hands on his hips and kind of turns himself sideways a little bit and gives me this stern look and says with a real gruff voice, "How come this house is only worth X number of dollars on such and such website?" And it's quite a greeting to have when you meet these people right off the bat. And I told him, I said, that's a great question, and I'm glad that you asked me that because that website provided you what is called an AVM, an automated valuation model, and it's a value that is calculated by a computer, but it has some limitations because this AVM that the computer is calculating can only access public data. Now, in Missouri, we're a non-disclosure state, so there's not much public data when you start looking at sold properties. The other problem I told him and his wife with this automated valuation model that they saw online is that the computer doesn't know properties that it looks at, what the condition of the house is, or what may be across the road, or various other factors that you and I both know that affect the value of real estate. The computer doesn't know that. It just says, hey, here's a property across the street or down the street, and it's the same size, it's a similar location, such and such and such and such, and so we'll use it as a comp. But the computer doesn't know if that house had a really bad pet odor or had lots of other issues like a bad musty smell in the basement and so forth and so on. So it's an automated valuation model. Now here's why, at least my interpretation of why we have RPR today. AVMs are a very big business. There are banks, there are insurance companies. Did you know there are even county assessors who purchase automated valuations because they need to know or want to know what real estate is valued at so they can use it within other calculations that they have to do. So it's a big business. We also see that internet consumer facing, public facing internet websites are getting into the AVM business. And it can hurt our business. Just like those people that I showed that property to, which by the way, they did purchase that home. And that was one of those domino effects that allowed me to sell several other properties. Now, what if those people had seen that online, saw the automated valuation that that website was calculating, and never called me? I would have had 3 or 4 different families who would have never had the opportunity to move. I would have lost out on a lot of good commission income, and it would have been a horrible situation for me, for everyone involved. And so we have these things called AVMs that people want. They're becoming uh, popular. We have the internet that is becoming this internet of things, and people are relying on and using for information. And it's really becoming almost out of hand. And so the National Association of Realtors said, you know what? If there's a need or a demand for a product like an AVM, why don't we create our own valuation model, and we'll call it the realtor valuation model, and we can use not only the public data, but we have something the competitors don't have. We have the MLS information, don't we? So we can provide this very accurate product that will provide a much more um, a better calculation of the valuation for the consumers, and we'll let our agents or our members use it, and they can use their experience and their knowledge to fine tune the pricing of properties. So that's basically why we have RPR, is because AVMs and the whole AVM industry is growing and becoming bigger and bigger, but yet the product or the tool was not very accurate. And we feel like we can provide a much more accurate solution, and we're able to do that through the realtor valuation model. Now, I will tell you this, when I first started using RPR, I probably used it 15% of the time. I'm being as honest as I can with you. Why? Because I was more familiar with the MLS. It was easier, it was quicker. Maybe it had a few bugs in the beginning, so I was kind of always still going back to the MLS. And then I had a property that I couldn't sell. It's priced too high, and I thought, you know what? You're going around preaching this sermon in the pulpit to all of these real estate agents about RPR, and you're not using it. Shame on you, John Mayfield. So I got my RPR out. This property I couldn't sell, did a valuation, came up with a price that I thought all along that property should be listed for, sat down with the seller, showed him the report. He said, I understand, let's lower it, let's get it sold. Within 3 weeks, I had that property under contract. It closed. Had another lady, she would not lower her price one bit. I did an RPR valuation on her condo, sat down with her, showed her the report. Again, it's this message. Remember that? She understood what I was trying to convey to her. We lowered her price. I sold that condo. And I want you to know I started using it more and more and more, and it has become the key ingredient for me pricing properties correctly, getting offers accepted, and beating out the competition when I go for listings. So let's take a look at how you can use RPR in your business and get started. So I have, I'm going to minimize this, and I'm going to open up my program, and I'm going to open up one more little item here, and we're ready to go. So this is the RPR webpage, The website address is NAR for the National Association of Realtors, RPR.com. That's where you will go to get started, sign up. Many of your multiple listing services may have a link directly on your webpage. For example, I'm a member of the St. Louis, Missouri Association of Realtors, or the St. Louis MLS, which is the Mid-America Regional Information Systems. We have a link right on our MLS dashboard where I can jump right into RPR. Once you log into RPR, don't worry about signing out. Just stay logged in, and that way each and every time you go to NAR RPR, it will just log you right into RPR. The first thing I want to show you is right over here. It's called the gears icon, and I want to kind of spend some time having you set that up. So we're going to go right into the gears icon, and I want to just point out a few things here for you very quickly that you need to be sure and do. And so you want to make sure you get your logo uploaded and upload your photo. We're going to be printing out, or I'm going to show you how to generate some really amazing reports, and you want these to be branded and you want them to look professional. You'll notice up here at the top of RPR, I have my logo. Now, if you are a broker or a manager, or if you are an agent and all you see is the MLS logo for your board, you can have your logo added at no additional charge. RPR will help you with that. I'll show you how to do that before the conclusion of the webinar. That's free. You want to make sure you get that branded for your company and for all of your agents. So let me come over here. So just kind of go down below, make sure all of this information is filled out correctly. Make sure your email, again, that will all be branded on your website. And then right here, you can see is where you're going to enter your MLS ID, and you'll set up a password that'll log you right in. So you'll be good to go at that point. And then you can see over here, if you have other devices like your iPad or your Android, some of those devices, if they're set up, you can do that as well. So that's on the settings page. And again, that's the little gear icon right over here. You want to make sure you go and at least get your company logo, your photo, make sure all of that information is complete. And that way your reports will look crisp and clear and have all the details, information you need to have. Now we're back on the home page, and I want to show you a couple of things right here that we're going to look at. We're going to really spend some time looking at this whole toolbar right here. This area here. And by the way, I'm having to use my mouse, so I apologize if my writing's not that, does not look that good because I'm using my finger and my mouse. We want to concentrate pretty much on these areas right here on this toolbar. Now you'll notice right here is where we're going to type in information, and everything auto-populates. And what I mean by that is the ability that when I begin typing in, for example, I live in Farmington, Missouri. As I begin typing in Farmington, it will auto-populate for me. There we go. And so it's asking me, did you mean Farmington, Arkansas, Farmington, California, or, did I mean any one of these other areas? I can also type in by zip code. So if I want to type in zip code, it automatically says, did you mean Farmington, Missouri? Now I can type in the county. So again, just begin typing in a few letters, and there's my county right there. So you can search by a wide variety of different ways and abilities through the main search bar. Now remember Mr. and Mrs. Harder I was telling you about earlier, who had never put their house in the MLS and their children wanted me to list their property? Well, I could just go in and type in the name, this is not their property address. I'm just typing this in, but any zip code, you get the idea. And I hit enter, that would pull up that property address. So you can even type in a specific street address city, zip code, county. I can even search by township, MLS listing ID, and some other various ways. Now, one thing I want to point out for you, because I did a webinar a couple of months ago. I do the Getting Started webinar each month for RPR. And a few months ago, I had a lady send me an email and she said, "John, I was so excited to use RPR. You got me all jazzed up about using RPR." And I went, I had this listing appointment. I went, I searched, and it wasn't there. And I was so discouraged. And so I wrote her back and said, "I'm so sorry. Is this property currently listed?" And she wrote me back and said, "No." And then I wrote her back and said, "Did you search under all properties, or did you search for sale?" And she wrote me back and said, "I figured it out. You were right. I searched under the for sale icon, and this property is not currently listed." So I want you to make note of this. This is the easiest way for me to explain these little menus. If you search all properties, it's like you're really searching the courthouse, okay? If you search for sale, it's like you were searching your MLS because it's mirroring the MLS. So let me show you an example of that and what I mean by that. If we searched all properties, and I'm going to type in Phoenix, Pho. They took phonics out of school when I was a kid, and I've been forever taunted by that. Phoenix, Arizona. Now remember, I'm searching what? All properties. Good. And I'm going to search. Now I'm breaking it down by a zip code. You can do that as well. If you have more than one zip code in your community, RPR will ask you, "Hey, did you mean Phoenix, Arizona 85002 or 85003? Now in this example, I'm only getting 9 properties, and that does not seem correct at all. So I don't know what the problem is there. Let's try Phoenix, Arizona, and we'll search. It might take just a minute to populate all of those in Phoenix, Arizona. That's the great thing about technology. I always tell people when I'm teaching technology, it's like Geraldo Rivera. Remember when he had the program on for 2 hours and he was going to open up the vault, and we supposedly were going to see Jimmy Hoffa's, Jimmy Hoffa was supposedly in the vault. And so we watched Geraldo for 2 hours and all of this information about history about Jimmy Hoffa and all the commercials. And at the very end of the program, they opened the vault and nothing was there. That could happen sometimes with technology. We could go try to open the vault and nothing's there. Okay, so here we go. 411,342 properties. See that? Here's what I want you to make note of. If I go back to the home screen, I was searching what? All properties. Remember, I said that's like accessing the county courthouse. Let's go to for sale and let's type in Phoenix, Arizona. Now again, I've moved over to the for sale button, and this should be a number that is much, much smaller than 411,000. In fact, it's probably, I'm guessing maybe 6 or 7,000 properties for sale, maybe 10,000, maybe a few. So we'll take a moment here to see. I usually try to drop down into a zip code on that, but for some reason I got some weird results. But again, we're searching just the for sale, and that's going to mirror the MLS or the multiple listing service. And as you can see, there's 387 properties. Okay, so what's that tell us there? That tells us that we can search all properties or properties for sale, and we can search by an address, city, zip code, state, and so forth. We can even search, if I wanted to go into Phoenix, Arizona, and I want to go to the advanced tab, I can go down here and say, I don't want the pending and I do not want non-distressed. I just want everything that's in a pre-foreclosure status that's not pending. So you can actually change up the parameters. You could search by bedrooms. You can search by price range. You're going to notice that, in this case, I was searching active and pre-foreclosure or bank-owned properties. And this will pull up all of the properties that are pre-foreclosure in Phoenix, Arizona. There's 223, and you'll notice these are designated or denoted by a red flag. So if I had a customer or client that wanted me to go and try to find pre-foreclosures in my community, I could do that. And notice on the left-hand side, I have the ability to change any of these parameters. So if they said, John, we've got to have three bedrooms, two baths, and we want something has more than 2,500 square feet, I can apply that, and it's going to now filter that 223 properties down to just those parameters. So I have the ability to filter or refine or narrow my search on the home page, but I can also do that when I'm within the search results or the properties that have come up. So hopefully that'll give us an answer here in just a second. Most of my other pages I already have pulled up for us, so we won't have a lot of waiting. But in this case, there are 45 of those properties. So keep in mind, you have the ability over here on the left and even further down to make changes, and then you would want to apply that. You can also at any time hit the clear button, and that'll clear those out as well. So I'll go back to the home screen just so you'll be clear on that. All properties, kind of like you're searching the courthouse, you're searching, if you had someone who wanted to have you come out and do a price evaluation, their home was not listed, you want to search for it by the address, you would do that right here. If you have a buyer who's looking at a property and they're thinking about making an offer and you're working as a buyer's agent, you have a fiduciary obligation, correct, to do due diligence to make sure they're not going to overpay for that property. So you could search under for sale. You could probably still find it under all properties, but it would be a little easier under for sale. We can also search by neighborhoods, and I'll show you that in a moment. And we can search by schools. And one of my favorite things is to search by market activity. Now watch how this works. And I'm doing some amazing things with uh, market activity reports and using this in a farm area. So I want to just kind of show you real quickly. I'm going to go to a saved report that I had down here, and I'm just going to pull this up. We'll just call this farm area number 2. And what I want you to see is this. I was able to go in and draw a map around a subdivision, and I would encourage you to do this. And then once you draw your map around the subdivision, you will save that report right up here where my mouse is and give it a name. In this case, I called it Farm Area 2. Now, all of your tools to draw are right up here. You can do a box. You can do a radius, which is kind of interesting. We can do a polygon, which means, if you had to do some interesting ways to go around the subdivision, you could do that as well. We can do drive time. If you have a doctor and he has to live within 15 minutes of the city, you could do a drive time, and you could do distance. I have a firefighter I'm working with who works at the fire department. He has to live within 5 miles of the fire station. I just put a pin at the firehouse, and now we know where to look for properties that he's looking for. So I have all of these tools, but again, if you create what I've done is created some drawings around subdivisions and then saved the subdivision. I can now go and I can pull up that property right here under my saved searches. So I'll pull up Redwood subdivision, and you'll be able to see what Redwood subdivision looks here. And now I have all the properties in Redwood subdivision in Phoenix, Arizona. Now let's do this. Let's go to create a report. This can make you a lot of money in 2016. So watch what I'm doing here. I'm on market activity, and I'm going to select more details. All of these items are checked. Now I'm going to go down, and so everything's checked. The first thing I want to do is select the past month. The second thing I want to do is uncheck expired and uncheck open house. Now I'm going to go down here and run the report. RPR will pull this report up, and when it's finished, it will tell me, and we can download that report. Now, I want to go back and show you that what I basically created in this example was a market activity report of a farm area that I have saved in RPR. Well, what's that mean? It means that if I'm farming this subdivision, I can now let everyone in that subdivision know that I create or produce a monthly report about real estate and what's going on in their subdivision, and they can access that report and download it from my website. People want to know what their property values are worth. Real estate is one of the most important investments many of us make. And if you're farming an area, you now have the most awesome tool that you can put on your website to drive traffic to your website, to make you look like the expert, and to help you win more business. Now, you can also, I've seen some people, so this report's ready. So I'll download the report here. But I've seen some people actually use a green screen or video. I've done some green screen videos, and you literally could be like the weather person and look at this nice report that is giving them all of the information that's gone on in the last month in their subdivision. So you really need to take a look at creating these market activity reports. And by the way, sometimes I'll save this on my iPad and I'll just review what's happening in my zip code market activity. So market activity has some awesome tools that you can use if you're farming an area. If you want to use that to acquaint yourself with what's happening in your market area, you can use that as a hot sheet, and it's right over here called market activity. You can also just preview changes right here and take a look at what's happening, but I like to actually go out and create the farm reports, and I'll show you some cool things I'm doing on my website here in just a moment. So let's drill down a little bit deeper. I want to go right over here, and I pulled up some properties in Phoenix, Arizona. You can see these are some properties here, and I actually went out and I pulled this property from the list. Now, this is where we're drilling down on a specific parcel of property within RPR. There's some amazing details and information that we're going to get from this report. First of all, we'll notice this property is listed for $159,900. It is for sale, and it's designated for sale properties are light blue. We have an interesting thing here called RVM. Now, most of you may be like me from college algebra. I crammed 4 years of college into 5. and put college algebra off to my senior year in college, and we had a comprehensive final, and I wrote an essay for my algebra final on why she needed to give me a D minus because I wanted to graduate. My mother and father and grandmother and all these people were coming to graduation, and I did not want to go to summer school and have to retake college algebra. So I made a C minus. I guess that's why I like to write. Uh, but I'm saying this jokingly because I'm sure many of you, including myself, if I was watching this for the first time, would say, "What did he say the RVM was?" Well, if you take your mouse and there's a little blue icon right there, and I put my mouse over that blue icon, RPR is a cheat sheet and it tells me what that RVM means. So at any time, if I forget something and there's a little I there, I can go out and RPR will remind me what that is. So the RVM is the computer calculating what it thinks the property's worth. This is interesting. Imagine you're a buyer's agent showing this property to a buyer and it's listed for 159.9 and the RVM's 137.5. Now we can't take that number as the gospel just yet because we have to do some more work. However, look at this. It's a 5-star. And here's the estimated value range, which gets up kind of close to 159, but it's still off. Now, property values are going up and there's been a change 20%. So you know what? There may be a shortage of inventory in this area, and maybe that number's a good number. I don't know. We're going to do some work. We get to go in and do some additional work on this property. But the first question, and as I go around doing CMAs for my clients, and I see this 137.5 and I see this RVM confidence, the first thing I want to know is, where did they get this information? Now, if I select or click on View Details, RPR is going to show me the comps and the location of those comps that it used. Now, it doesn't mean I have to use these comps because I can use some of my own comps, but it's telling me these are the comps the computer chose. Okay? We'll come back to that. So I have the ability to look at the comps right here, and I have the ability to see what's going on in the marketplace. I can remember everything's color coordinated over here. So everything gives me a color. Subject properties, gold, blues for sale, green is sold, red's distressed. Let's select the bigger map here and take a look at this map. Now, here is my subject property right here. If I want to find out more information, I can. I see there are two distressed properties one block over. I see catty corner from this house is a home that sold for 144. Now, that did sell last April. Here's another house that sold for 138 last May, but looks like the market's doing a little better than it did. And so I have the ability to look at this map. If I want to go out and look at this such as a Google view, I can do that as well. So I have the ability to change some options here, and I have the ability to even zoom out. If I want to zoom in or zoom out, I can zoom out and take a look a little bit more in depth. We'll leave it right there. And now I want to come over here to what are called heat maps. Right down here, because this helps you have the ability to go into some talking points. So now I like this 12-month change in estimated value. Here's my property right here. And look at what's happening in this marketplace. A lot of blue, isn't there? If I scroll down here, you will see that RPR tells me what's happening. If I have blue, which I have in this area, property values have been increasing over the last 12 months. If it's red, property values are declining or have been decreasing the last 12 months. I had a lady not too long ago. I went out to list her house. We'll just pretend like this was her house right here where our subject property is. Everything around her property was this shade of red right here. Now, I don't know if you have folks like we have where I'm from that get upset if you tell them their house is worth something and they think it's worth a little bit higher. Do you have sellers like that? We all do, right? She wasn't real happy when I told her what I thought her property was worth, and she said, "I can't understand how my property's going down, has decreased in value when I just purchased this, and I'm losing money on it." But when I showed her this map and she saw that property values in our whole community were declining, she understood. So it gets back to that message, and you have some heat maps and the ability to really do some heat overlays that help you deliver a message. Now, I can even do flood maps. In this case, there's a little flood area down here. It looks like that's a creek or a river, but this property is nowhere near a flood zone. Somebody might say, well, John, how did how do you know where that information comes from? Right down here, there's a little about button. Everything in RPR's footnoted. So you'll love that about RPR. Everything is a footnote. They tell you where they get the information, and it's all right there. Remember, RPR, I said that it was this very cutting edge application. It's pulling over 350 different data sources into one specific database, saving you and me hours of time having to research this on the internet. So we have lots of features here. We have some new features where we can do street views and overhead views. These are brand new in RPR, so they're constantly adding new features in RPR. Those are two brand new features that just were released that I think are very interesting. I can I can access the listing agent right here or her office over on the side. One of my favorite features about RPR is the ability to add notes. Now, I'm a very visual person, as you can see, and I use my iPad on my reports, and I love to highlight, generate, type notes. And so I can include these notes, I can upload photos, and it really helps me tell a story when I'm going out to do a listing presentation. Another feature I love is right over here on the right. And by the way, we're on the first page. There are all of these other pages that we're going to look at here real quickly. But look at this. I can compare anytime this property has been listed in the MLS, I can actually go in and here's the property today. Here's this property in 2006. Now, naturally, some of the photos may have been purged, but I can go down and get lots of other information, including finding out who the listing agent was, the legal description to check all of that. But I've seen these in my MLS. If there's properties that have been listed 4 or 5 times over the course of 8 years, you're going to be able to access all of that right here. And a lot of times you'll be able to see the photos as well, which is very interesting. I have lots of information about Phoenix, Arizona, the state, the county, the city over on this right-hand side. I have information here. If I have a discrepancy and I say, hey, they've only got 2 bedrooms now, I can make that change. It only changes my RPR. It doesn't change anyone else's RPR. What I do in RPR stays in RPR. I can also use this little feature right here. Now, this map has helped me close, it's helped me close a lot of deals, but it's helped me price properties more correctly. I'm all about trying to list properties correctly. If I can't list it right, I really don't want to list it. I took a listing not too long ago from a lady. I I thought it was a little high. I took the listing anyway, and all I did was probably make her mad because I couldn't get it sold. We showed it, we showed it, we showed it, and I tried. I did do an RPR report for her. It doesn't work all the time, but sometimes you maybe should walk away from a listing. But here's a graph that I've used that has helped me price properties a little bit um, accurately and has helped me out. And here's my secret. I want you to uncheck the county and uncheck the state. Now you have to look at what's going on here. In this case, remember gold represents my property and blue's the median estimated home value for the zip code. Now in this case, we're in pretty good shape because they're both pretty close together and the gold is below. However, I had a property and it was up here. And the median for my marketplace was down here. Now, I use this graph to show my clients that there are people purchasing homes in this price range in our community, but I wanted them to know I wanted them to know what I personally was up against. That for our marketplace, the median sales price is way down here and they were way up there. And I really wanted them to know this. We may not get a lot of lookers. And secondly, if we do get an offer, you better think very seriously about accepting that offer. I did get an offer on that property and we made it work. And I really believe they understood they might not get too many more offers like that. So this is a good graph. It's a good illustration to help you with pricing properties if you've got one of those challenging properties. I've got more information about the neighborhood. I'll be showing you school information, lots of information about the property, financing, homeowners, legal description. In some locations, including Arizona, you can even download the plat right there, tax information and more. That is just the first page. If we go over to the history tab, I get lots of other data. I can look at prior sales transactions, whether they were public or through the MLS. I can look at the tax assessment and go back a number of years to look at how this property has gone up or down with the assessment valuation. I have access in many parts of the country to mortgage records. If this property was a foreclosure, which it was in 2005, I have all of the disclosure information there. Literally, as I mentioned earlier, we have over 350 or so pieces of information that's being aggregated and put into one database for you. Things that your MLS just doesn't provide and doesn't have the access to. And in many cases, I'm seeing some of these uh, new programs that are coming out where they're doing similar things like this. But folks, you have to pay additional money to get all of the bells and whistles. RPR's free as a member of the National Association of Realtors. So now I'm over on charts and I have charts to my and data and information. Do I go over each and every one of these charts? No. Is it nice to have those in case I need to use that to help me price a property? Yes, it is. Now, the last stage we want to do is the refined value. And by the way, I know we have like 4 or 5 minutes left. We're going to get wrapped up. We might go a couple of minutes over, but I appreciate your time, but there's not a lot of time left with the webinar. I just want to show you, this is very interesting here. You want to have some conversations. If they've done any repairs, let's just say they did some kitchen remodeling, and they did this in April of 2014 and they spent $25,000. You can add that and watch what happens. I've given them $14,000 in value for that $25,000 kitchen remodeling they did in April of 2014. Now, why is that important? First of all, because I think many of us don't take the time to ask a lot of questions. I recently I'm revamping my business tech guy website, and I needed some coding done and some things I wanted to do kind of differently. And so I used a website called Codable.com and put my requirements of what I was needing done for my website, and had lots of people that asked me lots of questions. But I ended up hiring I think probably a 15-year-old kid. He's probably older than that. He was 16 or 17. But here's why I hired him. I had lots of people that were telling me, "Hey, I can do that for you," and no, I'm good at WordPress and I can do coding. And but the guy I hired him because he asked me a lot of questions about what my needs were and what I wanted, and that impressed me. And a light bulb kind of went off in my head because I thought, "Wow, am I doing that enough as a real estate agent?" Dale Carnegie said we can win more friends by showing them we're interested in them in a 2 week period or a 2 month period than we can in 2 years by trying to get people interested in us. And so it reminded me of why it's important for us to ask the client or the customer that we hope will be a client, what are some things you've done to the home recently in the last couple of years? What are you going to miss? And do you mind if I ask you how much you spent for that? Because I can plug that into my new system, and I can help you with that. So take some time and use that, and add those values. And then remember, I said you get to use your experience and your knowledge. So now if the local market conditions are pretty hot, I can change that. If the home needs some painting on the outside, I can change that. If the inside needs a little work, I can make an adjustment. And look what's happening. Um, as we do that, the prices, it's actually adjusting the price for me. So if I'm making changes, RPR is doing the calculating. And that's all part of the algorithm. Now, I'm just doing these for fun. So we've done our refined value, and we're going to go out and do the comp analysis. This is the last phase. We're going to do 5 quick steps. Number 1, we'll confirm the facts. So we will 99% of the time you'll confirm the facts. The second thing we want to do is find comps. And I would just tell you to leave this alone, because RPR is going to search within this period or this area, and it is going to search within that area. So now I'm going to just search. Hopefully I haven't lost my connection. I think I'm still broadcasting. And here are my comps. And now I get to go down and choose the comps I want to use. Notice the blue means they were used in the RVM, but if I find a comp that wasn't used in the RVM that I think would be a good comp to use, I can do that. And there's tons of comps down here. For simplicity's sake, I'll select Update the Valuation and Close. And now I want to adjust my comps. And here's where I could go down and say, I have been in this property. It is much nicer than the one I'm looking at. This one here is about the same. This property was a lot nicer. See how it's making adjustments for me? And I can even add notes. So I can make details about the condition or other factors that I know. And I can highlight that when I go over the report. I can also, if I come over here and I say, man, this property right here, it's in the 5th position. This is almost identical to the comp that I'm trying to list. So now I'm going to, now I'm going to go up here and put that in the 1st position. That's interesting there, which I think is new. I can actually, if I want to pull that comp back from 2009, I can put that in the order. But notice I've actually now put that property in the 1st position, and I can add a note almost identical to your property because I want to use it first. So now I'm going to update the valuation and close. And print the report. There's one other little step that we can do here. So at that point, I can edit this. If I want to put my own numbers in here, I can do that, or I can leave the numbers that RPR has. I print the report. It's going to be probably 80 pages long. You can see more details. I'm just going to leave them all checked. And I'm going to select Run the Report. It's going to print that in a PDF. I'm going to put that in my Dropbox, take my iPad out, open that report up, and use a program called iAnnotate. And I'm going to highlight, make notes, and then email that presentation to my client once I'm finished. And I want you to know that report will beat out the competition 99.9% of the time because it's an amazing report. I have customers all the time or sellers when I'm writing up the listing and I've gone up against two or three other agents, they will tell me, John, that report you did for us, you put a lot of work into that. It's graphs, it's pages, and no, I don't go through all 85 pages, but I go through the high points and I send it to them and they look through it. And if they want to print out the 85 pages, they can do that. So you have lots of reports that you can do. Property reports good for, for open houses. As a mini report, I'm using the property flyer. It's very cool. We talked about the market activity report. And look at the neighborhood. When I select neighborhood, notice here that I'm getting information about housing, information about people. I can find out how many people voted Republican or Democrat. Everything's footnoted. I can go over here and I can select the economy. I can even tell you that in Phoenix, Arizona, they have 180 full days of sunshine a year. And you can use a program called Flip Builder. I'll show you very quickly on my website. And you can take these PDF programs. And keep in mind, I do a lot of really doing more speaking and training, but I still try to stay in the trenches. But here's a copy of my digital magazine that I created in Flip Builder, and this is what the neighborhood report looks like. And so now I have digital reports that I can share on Facebook or Twitter, drive traffic to my website. I can share those with people who are relocating into the area and more. Now, up at the top where we were on residential, if you select residential, you'll go back to residential. If I select commercial, you have the commercial option. So keep that in mind. Check that out. I want to show you one other very interesting thing that you can do. Don't forget to download the mobile app. It's a wonderful app, has lots of great data. I use it every day. But down at the bottom, it's called Blog. Be sure and go out to the blog. There's lots of training resources there and information. And when I mentioned earlier that you could add your logo as a broker, just select brokers and right here, the broker tools or enroll, and you can follow this process and you can get your logo all set up for RPR. So it's an amazing tool. It does some great things. I know it got a little bit long-winded on a few things. I have the ability for recent properties, recent searches, recent reports. I did record this, and if you want to find out more information, you're welcome to email me at any time. I'm going to throw my contact information back up there. Send me an email. I'll send you the link to the recording once it's done. But folks, I love RPR. It has been a great tool for me. I'm doing lots of other really interesting kind of cutting edge technology applications with RPR. I have a great RPR expired letter that's in my latest book, and I can give you a link to that. Uh, so if you're interested in any of that, feel free to reach out to me. Um, there's no fee. I don't charge anything unless you call me every day. I jokingly say, then I might have to charge you something. But feel free if you want to know how I did the digital books or anything like that. I'll be glad to help you with RPR. You've been a great group. Thank you so much. Hopefully your questions got answered. If not, you have my email address there. Reach out to me, and I hope you have a great day. And I hope, more importantly, that you go out and sell something today. Have a great rest of your day. I will talk to you soon. Thank you.